Sean Haney here with RealAgriculture.com and Real Ag Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. We're going to talk about a column in the Globe and Mail that I quite enjoyed entitled Canada Looks More Like a Failed State, the Longer Trudeau Fails to Act. And the author is joining us right now. It is John Ibbitson with the Globe and Mail. John, thanks a lot for joining us here today.
Pleasure to be here.
Lot happening in Canadian politics. There's lots to write about, lots to talk about. Now, what caught my attention, and no doubt on purpose, the use of the word "the failed state," and the opening line of the column, John. One characteristic of a failed state is that it has no functioning national government. By that standard, Canada is failing pretty badly. Is this a classic case of someone wanting to be prime minister more than anything else? No, there's no other duty that would top this, and you're going to have to pull this from my cold, dead hands.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, failed state is a bit of a poetic license. Obviously, Canada is a fully functioning, developed state. It's not Haiti. It's not Sudan. But we do have a case where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is clinging onto power, despite the fact that his own deputy prime minister and finance minister quit on the day she was supposed to deliver an economic statement, and then issued a letter saying you have the wrong direction for the country. You are not prepared to deal with the incoming president Donald Trump, and I'm quitting. He has a majority of caucus apparently telling him that it's time for him to quit, or at least expressing the wish that he would quit. In every respect, the polls show that the Liberals are 25 points behind the Conservatives. In every respect, the country wishes that Justin Trudeau would step down as Prime Minister. The Liberal Party wishes that Justin Trudeau would step down as Prime Minister. Everyone wants Justin Trudeau to step down as Prime Minister, but he won't.
If this was the UK, they would have had like 3 elections by now.
Yes, but we don't have a mechanism here for the caucus to remove a leader. The Liberal caucus, apparently, the majority of the Liberal caucus wants Justin Trudeau to go, but they don't have the power to force him to go. The decision can only be his. He has to go to the Governor General and say to her that he either wishes Parliament to be dissolved, or he has to go to his national executive and say, I wish to step down as leader of the Liberal Party.
So what's driving this? Like, he's always had a relatively small inner circle, Katie Telford being an example of the PMO's office. But what I guess, what's the gap here? If all of those things are true, what's the why for wanting to hold on like this?
Apart from the fact that politicians love power, I think it is that Pierre Poilievre is a populist conservative leader of the Conservative Party. He is very popular. He would dismantle just about everything that the Liberal government has put in place over the last 10 years. Justin Trudeau believes that he would be a disaster for the country, and Justin Trudeau believes that only he can prevent Pierre Poilievre from becoming prime minister. It is a fallacy that many politicians from Stephen Harper in Canada, who lost to Justin Trudeau in 2015, to Joe Biden in the United States, who thought that only he could defeat Donald Trump. They stay on longer than they should and do damage to their party and perhaps to their country because they don't recognize it as time to go.
Was Carney ever close to to actually saying yes to joining this ship?
That is the $64,000 question. When Justin Trudeau contacted by Zoom Chrystia Freeland, he told her that he no longer had confidence in her as finance minister. He wanted her to step down and take over another role, Canada-U.S. relations, and that he wanted Mark Carney to come in as finance minister. Did that mean that there was an agreement between the PMO and Carney? Carney ultimately said he wasn't interested in the job. Did he change his mind once everything blew up that weekend and the following Monday? It's going to take the history books to tell us what exactly Carney had agreed to prior to that call between Trudeau and Freeland. We just don't know.
If Prime Minister Trudeau, it seems like it's inevitable at this point. It's a matter of when. What's the preferred path for Liberal insiders that you talk to? Is it that he steps down and there's a leadership before an Canadian election? Or is it for him to have to face an election, be defeated, and then find a leader post-election?
Like, there's just about no liberal who breathing who wants to go into an election with Justin Trudeau as leader. It would be, by all polling, a disastrous defeat for the party. So I think what most liberals, many liberals at least, are hoping is that Trudeau will announce his intention to step down, say right after New Year's, that he prorogues, that is, suspends Parliament so that the government can't be defeated by the opposition parties in a motion of non-confidence, and that while prorogation is in effect, the Liberals hold a leadership race. They choose a new leader to replace Justin Trudeau. That new leader becomes prime minister. And then shortly after that, there's likely to be an election.
We saw the end of last week. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh posted on X that he may be now siding with those that want to have a non-confidence vote. Do we take him at his word at this point? What's driving that from his aspect?
Yeah, I'm prepared to take him at his word. He had propped up the government for years, and then even after he ended what is called the supply and confidence agreement between the NDP and the Liberals, he continued to vote with the government on motions of non-confidence to the frustrations of the other opposition parties. But Chrystia Freeland's resignation, that devastating letter that she posted, has convinced him that it is time for Justin Trudeau to go and for the Liberal government to go. And he has said that the NDP will join the opposition in voting non-confidence whenever they get an opportunity to do so.
So what about Freeland? She's had a interesting relationship, I think, over time with Prime Minister Trudeau. She wanted to, coming out of that NAFTA renegotiation, she really pushed to be the finance minister, and she got that role. Clearly, this relationship is fully cracked. What do we take on her path forward? Is she a viable candidate for the Liberal leadership?
There are people within the Liberal caucus and outside the Liberal caucus who are pushing her. In that sense, her decision to resign and to issue a letter publicly criticizing the Prime Minister could be considered a leadership ploy. If he steps down, if caucus appoints an interim leader, they may very well appoint her to be the interim leader. She would then take the party into the next election. But let's not forget, whoever becomes the next leader, interim or permanent or otherwise, is going to be leading the party into the next election, 20 to 25 points down in the polls, and is likely to be defeated in that election.
Yeah, I got to think they look at what happened with the Conservatives, right? It took them 3 rounds of trying to find a leader. Like, if I had any interest as a Liberal in the leadership, it's sort of like owning a golf course. Maybe you want to be the second or third owner, John.
Maybe you don't want to be the person who takes the party to what could be a historic defeat. On the other hand, whoever leads the party after that defeat will still be the leader of the party. Will still have the resources of the leadership, will be in charge of caucus, and would be a strong candidate in the next round. But let's not forget, when Justin Trudeau rescued the Liberal Party back in 2012, 2013, the party was in third place in the House. It was broke, it was dispirited, and people were questioning whether the party could survive. The party could be right back again to where it was when Justin Trudeau took it over.
What are the Conservatives thinking at this point? There was a lot of pundits I was hearing, going back 6, 12 months when sort of the flip happened on popularity here. A lot of time, Polyev, it's his to lose, but he can lose it. Is there anything at this point that closes a gap on a 20-point lead?
Perhaps a new Liberal leader, but and perhaps not. It would be extraordinary if Pierre Poilievre was not our prime minister in a few months. He is the leader of the Conservative Party. He's, as we said, 20 to 25 points ahead of the polls. The Liberals are in complete disarray. You couldn't have a more textbook situation for a change of government and a change of governing party than Pierre Poilievre enjoys right now.
U.S. election in November. What role is incoming President Trump having on maybe some of the Canadian political scene and this strife on the Liberal side of the aisle?
Oh, Trump's victory in November is driving much of this because he was um, a challenge to Canada during his first term. He threatened to completely rip up the North American Free Trade Agreement. In the end, Chrystia Freeland led a team that brought about a renegotiation of that agreement in concert with Mexico. But now the incoming president is saying he's prepared to impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico if they don't fix the border. We didn't know that the border was all that broken up until now, but it appears that he's determined to do it. 25% tariffs on the Canadian exports into the United States would be catastrophic for this country's economy. It is that threat that is driving much of this right now.
I'm kind of fascinated when we do have a Canadian election, we will have a President Trump and we will be getting his opinions on that election. I'm kind of curious what that's going to look like as he will not be able to probably be disciplined enough not to weigh in. And he weighed on the Freeland resignation quite strongly, at the same time throwing some shade towards Prime Minister Trudeau, again with the governor comments. But it's going to be kind of uncomfortable, I think, for Canadians to have an election and then have the U.S. president saying, choosing a side, so to speak.
Not to mention Elon Musk
Yeah.
on X as well. Yeah, typically Americans are very careful not to comment on Canadian domestic politics, respecting sovereignty and all of that. But Donald Trump is not your typical American politician. So even if you were to stay off X or Truth, whatever it is,
Yep.
whatever social media he prefers to use, he will be the huge gorilla in the room during the next election campaign because the only question during that election campaign will be who is best suited to deal with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if Canada, if we could do it, choose again, we would do what Mexico did, have their election prior to the U.S. election. I think that's kind of the preferred path, regrettably.
Yeah, absolutely. And even those who are saying we need to have an election right now have to acknowledge that no matter what happens, we will be choosing our next government and our next prime minister after Donald Trump is already in office and perhaps after we are already facing these tariffs.
Yeah, I hear from our audience a lot that Trump's going to prefer to deal with Polyev. I don't think it's that simple. I think that's just conservative, and everyone's just going to get along really well on an island. I'm not sure about that.
I don't think it's certainly that case at all. It's probably the case that Polyev can say to Donald Trump, I have a mandate. I was elected with a large majority government. Like you, I am a conservative. Like you, I were able to border. So let's work together, you and I, to fix whatever problems exist between us. It's just a case of Polyev perhaps having more political capital than a new liberal government might have.
You make anything of the incoming President Trump discussion about he said it to Prime Minister Trudeau at Mar-a-Lago, Canada becoming a state. Is that just trolling or what's at work here? He said it multiple times. He's doubling and tripling down on it. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, it's Donald Trump, so you just assume that he's having fun. By the way, we wouldn't be a 51st state. We would be a 51st, 52nd, 53rd, 54th, maybe 55th state. There are 40 million people here, so we're not going to be one state. Also, I don't think Quebec has the slightest desire to be a part of the United States. There's a good chance that there could be a referendum on whether it wants to stay as a part of Canada later in this decade. So no, that's just nonsense. Canadians have no desire to become part of the United States, short of military intervention. It's just the president throwing shade.
A couple more things. We mentioned Freeland as a potential leadership candidate. Who are the other popular names being thrown about? Obviously, Mark Carney, Freeland. Who else?
Dominic LeBlanc, who's now the finance minister, after Chrystia Freeland left, a very good friend of Justin Trudeau. He's a possibility. Anita Anand, another cabinet minister, is a possibility. Other cabinet ministers, including Melanie Joly and Mr. Champagne, is a possibility as well. And then there are some people who we just don't know. Christy Clark, the former premier of British Columbia, she might decide to run as well.
Yeah, we interviewed Chrystia Clark was on our show going back a couple weeks ago from Agribition in Regina. She was pretty non-committal at this point, John, but she's definitely her name's being very much thrown about. Okay, so prediction time. You've been in this game for a while. What do you envision happening here? How does this play out in front of us?
And somebody said if I had to bet a buck, I would bet that Justin Trudeau announces in the first week of January that he's stepping down and that he prorogues Parliament while a new leader is chosen. If I had to bet $2, I'd walk away because it's not worth the bet. Things are just too uncertain.
John, I really appreciate you joining us. I want everybody to check out John's most recent column with the Globe and Mail. Canada looks more like a failed state the longer Trudeau fails to act. John, thanks for joining us here today on Real Ag Radio.
My pleasure.